All right, I take criticism pretty well. Tell me they want a bit more of the stories, because every time I bring midrashim and I don't expand on it, and there's always a very interesting stories. You know, when you know the stories, the history, there's some very interesting stuff about the midrashim. And just this week, I mean, just the haftarah, very easy to connect to the vault, even with Hosea, what happened. I'm not going to go into this because I'm going to give you plenty, and I'm going to try to reach Shavuos. So I can give you a tremendous yesod from the Kedushas Levi and from the Avodas HaKodesh about Shavuos. Starting a new sefer, Bamidbar is also called Sefer HaPikudim, the Sefer of the countings. It's going to be non-stop counting of Bnei Israel. Rashi is explaining mitochi basa, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves the Bnei Israel, therefore he counts them time after time. Like someone who has something valuable, he's counting them non-stop. Okay. The problem is that counting is dangerous. As Rashi says in Parshas Kisisa es roish b'nei Israel, when you're going to count the heads of the Bnei Israel, you're going to have a head count of the Bnei Israel. You have to take a machatzis shekel, and this machatzis shekel is the one we're going to count. Why? V'lo yisiyeh bahem negef. Rashi explained they should not get the Black Death, the Dever. Why is it so problematic to count someone? The Zohar explains that when you're counting, you're obviously putting everything in perspective to the eye, that it's becoming visible. And anything that's visible, the bracha cannot be shoira, cannot lay onto it. And actually, if you had bracha, it goes away. The bracha goes away. So if the bracha goes away, who comes? Says the Zohar, the ayin hara. And the person loses his bracha. In general, this is what I'm going to develop tonight. We're going to see exactly the terms of one side and the other side. What's the pro? Why did he count them? And what the danger of counting them? Basically, here it doesn't mention at all the machatzis shekel in our parasha. Why don't I show you, and we go a little bit on the words. We're not going to need too much to share screens, because I have a couple of stories, but it says, "Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe b'midbar Sinai be'oihel moed." The Zohar asks, we all know where the oihel moed was. It was only in the midbar Sinai. So what do you have to tell me? B'midbar Sinai be'oihel moed. Was no need. Be'echad lashana hasheni. Like, makes any difference when he counted them? It's the count that's important. The date is not important. We're going to count them in Parshas Nasoi. We're going to count them every time there's a tragedy. The remaining are going to be counted. In Parshas Pinchas, they're going to be counted, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. So you basically have very few parashas when they're not counted in Sefer Bamidbar. And how they counted? Raise the head. Here it says tifkedu, to count, but here it says to raise the head. Interesting. So Parshas Nasoi es roish. Parshas Kisisa es roish. Always the verb of raising the head. But it says later on in the pasuk, from 20 years on, anyone who's on an army age, Israel, you need to count them. It didn't say here, Tisu Roisham, it says Tifkedu. But every time when he mentions at the beginning the counting, he talks about raising the head. So let's take back the translation of this pasuk. Se'u esroish kol adas b'nei Yisrael. Okay, kol b'nei Yisrael wouldn't be sufficient. Se'u esroish b'nei Yisrael. Kol. We're trying to include me kol. Like if I say b'nei Yisrael, I'm going to miss some. We're not going to manage to get to these words. According to the Ariya Kodesh, I'm going to try to answer what it means. Kol zacha legulgelosam. All the males to their heads, but here we call it roish. Here is gulgoles. We change roish and gulgoles are the same thing. The gulgoles is the outer the bone part of the head. The roish is more, I don't know, the inside of the head, we can say. But why are we changing the language here in the counting and where it's repeated at all? So it is a little bit problematic not to understand, what's the message at the beginning of a parasha, because then we cannot follow up with the parasha. One thing we know, Bamidbar says the Mechaber, the Shulchan Aruch, always precedes Shavuos. Counting Shavuos. What's the kesher between them? What relationship can he have counting Menu and Shavuos itself? I really hope I'm going to try to go fast on the rest, just to give you one yesod, and then I'm going to try to give you the yesod of the Kedushas Levi. Mind-boggling, this yesod, mind-boggling. Really mind-boggling. These open eyes, not only it's on Shavuos, but he open eyes on the pshat of the first pasuk of the Parasha. I've never seen such a pshat. Anyway, so the Zohar described the counting, the process, how it was done. Because of the danger of the Ayin Hara, and like at the time of David HaMelech, when he told Yoav ben Tzeruya to go count the Bnei Yisrael, and Yoav went to count, in 1 hour, the Midrash says 70,000 died. 70,000 Jews died because the Gemara says David HaMelech forgot what even children in kindergarten know, that we don't count Jews. So when you're in the shul and someone wants to count like this, you tell them, hey, I'm not in. Stay out of this. Because whenever you become visible to the other side, automatically danger arises. What is the danger? The danger is, who does he think he is to be counted like he is somebody? All right. So the Sitra Achra starts right away to be mekatreg on the avoinos of the person. And Tzadik Ba'aretz asher yasitoi velo yechta. There's nobody who doesn't have, a pekelech on the back. So right away they go and they raise the din on him, the midas hadin on him. Therefore, we cannot be visible. Okay. So how do they do it? We first raise all the machatzis shekel. Once all of them were there, they were saying a bracha, Yosef Hashem Aleichem Kachem Elef Pe'amim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should add upon you 1,000 times, 1,000 folds. Then we were counting them. Then we were saying another bracha. Since the counting was encompassed between two brachas, the Sitra Achra could not come on here. Honestly, I can tell you the words, but it's very hard to understand what's the foundation and what's the purpose, what's happening really. We counting everything. Let me ask you something. When you have to give the Meiser, Behema, and you have to count your animals by 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Boom, the 10th is Kodesh. You're not worried about the counting of the Ayin Hara? Let me ask you differently. When you had to give the Meiser to, even though the Gemara in Psachim, it's not Psachim, this Gemara, it's in Ena bracha shore b'davar asami min ha'ayin. Shabbos, I don't remember. That the bracha, so he says ba'asamecha. Asamecha means is a lashon samui. Even the Baraturim says is asamecha is gematria ze samui. It's hidden, has to be hidden. He used to make a yehiratza in the person beforehand to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should be shared the bracha on the keri, on the pile of grains. At the end of the day, he had to calculate 10% for the Levi. So how do you calculate 10% if you don't know how much is 100%? So you had to weigh it, or you had to do, if you was accounting, you had to count it, but you had to measure it. So where is all this stringency about counting? On one hand, we see Rashi telling us, Chaz v'shalom, the Psukim telling us, Chaz v'lo yebam negev. On the other hand, we see it's not really so terrible to count. So why can't we count the Bnei Yisrael? We'll come back later to this, and it will be self-answered with what we're going to bring up. From the words of the Zohar, we learn at least two things. There are two actions that are being taken when we count. The bracha goes away, means you have a cover, it goes away. And now the Ayin Hara comes in. And we're going to see it's two different actions. Why usually the Ayin Hara, whenever there is the bracha, what is the bracha? Let me show you what is a bracha. Don't want to spend much time showing you this because it always takes me time showing to the thing, but I think it's kedai to know what a bracha is. You see, when we say Baruch Ata Hashem, any bracha, Baruch, we don't bless HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The bracha is Yud Ke Vav Ke, Yud Ke Vav Ke, Yud Ke Vav Ke, Yud Ke Vav Ke equals HaBracha. When we say Baruch with the four letters, the Ari HaKadosh says equals 232. Ralav is 232. Whenever we mention the word, the Shemes Ralav, the Shemes of 232, meaning all the feelings of the names of Hashem, the Yud Ke Vav Ke, all together, all the worlds are coming together at that time when a person makes a bracha. So that's a bracha. All the worlds together, an attachment. So now you see when a person doesn't have the Yud Ke Vav Ke with him, so when the Yud Ke Vav Ke is within a person, the light always, because you had the light on you, so there's always a remainder of the light. And that's why right away he attracts the other side, because as we live from the Kedusha, the Sitra Achra lives from the Kedusha. There's no life possible without the light of Hashem. No life can be sustained. So they come after HaKadosh Baruch Hu has left a person, and there's still some residues of light, so they come and get it. But at the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself is hidden. He hid himself. We don't know his place. He's not showing his action. Why? Because the bracha stays. Yoshev b'seiser elyon. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hidden. Kavod Elohikim, says Mishlei Shlomo HaMelech. The kavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is haster davar. Even the chidushim, everything, hide them. That kavod to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So everything has to be hidden. We understand that side. We understand we have a question on it. But everything has to be hidden. To the point even that when Avraham Avinu went to take Yitzchak to the Akedah, he went to Har Moriah, he told him, Kach es bincha, take your son, hid the rest. So Avraham Avinu answered, I have two sons, which one? Es yechidecha, you're unique, added a layer, hid the rest. Asher ahavta, I love both. Es Yitzchak. Midrash says what happened when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says those words, Yitzchak. I could spend the rest of the share just talking just about this right here. But let me tell you what the Midrash says. Right away, the Satan went into action. He appeared to Sarah as an old man. And he said, oh, poor lady, where is your son? He says, I don't know. My husband took him, and they probably went to the yeshiva Shem Ve'ever so he can learn Torah. You really think he's there? I don't know. He says, I hear rumors, you know. What? Okay, disappears. Comes back under something. Where is your son? I don't know. I said, the word is that Avraham took him to Har Moriah and shechted him. Oh, if you had heard the screams of your son, he was saying, please, Father, have mercy and everything. He was describing her in details, the shechting of Yitzchak, how horrible was the father and how pleading was the son. She couldn't take it. She burst into cries. She started walking. She went out, I think, looking for her son. She went all the way to Hebron, next to Maras HaMachpelah. At that point, the Satan appeared to her like Yitzchak. And out of the shock, Sarah died. Just for this, the Satan should pay till end of the days, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should have no mercy on him. When comes the day to pay, we have to remember he's gonna come and beg for forgiveness. No forgiveness. The Achzarius, what he did, and here it's only Sarah. His Achzarius was tremendous. But what sprung him into action, it's always revealing the secret. When Yitzchak had to give the bracha, came the time to give the bracha over to Yaakov, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took the light of his eyes. These type of brachas can only be given b'seiser. And even Yaakov could not get it in a normal way. He had to get it in a sneaky way. Why? Because the Satan thought that something that comes out of a sneaky way could never be miskayim, could never happen, could never take place. So he let it be, but you see the complication, it couldn't be in a normal way. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked to build the Mishkan, there were 4 layers of yerios, of covers on top of the Mishkan. Why? Because had to be privacy, everything hidden. Once the Mishkan was created, was built, Hashem never spoke to Nevi'im or whatever besides in the Mishkan. Because so the Satan should not have access to these words and try to turn them into a weapon against us, Chas v'Shalom. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu appeared on Har Sinai, there was Choshech, the Pasuk says, Choshech, Anon, Va'arafel. 3 layers of smoke and clouds and everything, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu was hidden in the middle. We see the emphasis in the Torah about hiding things, so it should not be, look how far it is. Now, let me turn the table. So, Kadosh Baruch Hu loves the Bnei Israel. Don't you think that out of love, you should not count them in order not to endanger them? Why do you ask Moshe Rabbeinu to count them and not counting them? Says Mamish, he was a process. Atav, Aharon, you had to be you and Aharon, and every Rosh of Shevet had to be there. What's so pompous? Can't you count? I mean, we know the trick already. Give me a machatzis shekel, I do it and I count it. But why take the risk that something is done improperly? If you love the Bnei Israel, don't give it into the hand of people to count them or to do the task. Do it, Hashem. Hashem, there's no mistake. By human, there are mistakes. So, seeing all these midrashim, all these places where HaKadosh Baruch Hu made sure to hide, and the only time, everything was hidden at the last moment, says the Zohar HaKadosh, even when Moshe Rabbeinu went to Shamayim, despite the fact that he went up and he was covered by the clouds, when he arrived in Shamayim, the Malachim said from very far, from what it says there, the distance 500 years distance, whatever distance it means. We smell the flesh, they're disgusted by this, of a child, of a woman. They said, it feels like, for them it's a garbage. What is a Yelud Isha, born by a woman, coming to do in Shamayim? They wanted to kill him. They wanted to burn him. It says in the Pasuk that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put his palm on him and covered him so he shouldn't be seen by the Malachim, so they don't hurt him. And the Zohar goes on and says something else tremendous in here. Even when a person is mechadesh a chidush in Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hiding it from the Malachim. Why? Chidush in Torah, even mitzvahs. Counting, understanding, the animal, these, feel mitzvahs, a chidush Torah, yes. Says the Zohar HaKadosh that HaKadosh Baruch Hu covers it until he creates new worlds, because every time someone is mechadesh a chidush, HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates shamayim chadashim, new skies, new earth, complete. Then he reveals it. But beforehand, it's dangerous to this person if the Malachim see the Chidush Torah that he was doing. And see how much trouble Yechizkiyahu HaMelech brought over himself. What do you mean Yechizkiyahu HaMelech brought over himself? You know the story. Yechizkiyahu HaMelech saw in Nevuah that he will have 2 children, which will be big Reshai. So therefore he didn't want to get married. So one time he got sick, and Nasan Hanavi came to see him and told him in the name of Hashem. Chizkiyahu HaMelech was a tremendous tzaddik. In his doyer, there was no children, boy a girl, 6 years old, that didn't know Seder Taharos of the Mishnayos by heart. Not one in all Eretz Yisrael. And Nasan Hanavi comes with a message from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Dar, Kisamus velo yisichye. You will die and you will not live. Meaning you will die here and not live in Olam Haba. All your Olam Haba is gone. So Chizkiyahu Melech turned around. The Malchei David were never panicking. They were very poised people, not afraid. He says, what have I done? You didn't get married. You didn't do the mitzvah HaKadosh Baruch Hu ordered you. He says, yes, but I have a reason. I'm going to have bad children. Nasan Hanavi answered him, our responsibility is to be Mekayim, the mitzvah HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The outcome of it, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's decision. It's already not in our hands. If you have to get married, you get married. Chizkiyahu HaMelech turned to the wall and started crying to Hashem. Very powerful tefillah. And he tells Nasan Hanavi, maybe if you give me your daughter, between your schus and my schus, maybe that we will have good children. But he happened to have Reshaim, that not only were choite, but they were machti the rabbim also. What happened? Nasan Hanavi, Chizkiyahu HaMelech. There's a mind-boggling midrash in Melachim, Yakut Shimoni, mind-boggling. That's the story I promised you. But don't get used to it, because I don't like to get out of focus when I go into the thing of the Zohar. So here, Baladan was the king of Babel. His scribe was Nebuchadnezzar. Baladan was, you hear that word, Baladan? That's exactly who he was. He was getting up in the afternoon. He was sleeping the whole night. And one day, he gets up and he sees that it's the day still earlier, and he wanted to kill all his gods that didn't wake him up. So they told him, no, because he thought he slept over a night and a day. So he says, no, it's the God of Chizkiyahu that turned the sun started going up from the western side to the eastern side backward. That's exactly what happened. He says, what? He has such a God? I'm sending him a present. And this is where comes the 3 steps that we do before that's the importance of those 3 steps. So Baladan started writing to the great king of the great city of Yerushalayim, great king Chizkiyahu, and to his great God. Whatever, and he sent a present to, if he has such a God, he said, I have to send him a present. As soon as the messenger was going out, he says, I was not right, because the God is the greatest. He ran toward the messenger. After 3 steps, Malach Gabriel came and stopped him. Don't do more, because that's going to destroy Bnei Israel. These 3 steps are what gave Babel the 3 great kings. These 3 steps for the kavod of Hashem had a tremendous din on the Bnei Israel for generations and millennials. And we are canceling those 3 steps by doing the 3 steps before and after Shemoneh Esrei for the kavod of Hashem. So when the messenger came to Yerushalayim, Chizkiyahu, why he felt obliged, I don't know, the Satan, whatever happened, started showing them all the greatness of Yerushalayim, his wealth, his storage rooms full of wealth and everything, and he showed them the Arain Beris Hashem. When he showed them, because he revealed it, it says right away, he had the Gzera of having Menashe. Meaning that earlier, once he married the daughter of Nasan, Hanavi, it was canceled. But now, because he revealed, right away the din came on him and he had Menashe. Look what happens when we reveal something rather than keeping it. Every time, sometimes we have an urge. We want to feel good about people. Now you understand why Chazal says run away from the Shrara. When Rabbi, from being a public person, run away. Run away from the COVID as if your life depends, because your life depends on it. Because as soon as you're being revealed or you are placed in a position that you're seen, you have no more life. You're finished. Person is finished. So now that I've been yotze the story, we can go back to getting a little bit more sense in our pasuk. So at least we see, because and now we see revealing. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu not only is revealing, he wants to know the number. Okay, it's one thing if he wants to know and keep it for himself, but to know and to reveal it in public, that everyone that reads the Bible knows the number of the Bnei Israel. How is it possible? What do the Goyim have to do with the number of the Bnei Israel? What should they know at all? Remember, we asked the question, B'midbar Sinai be'oihel moed. The Zohar asked the question, it's really redundant. We don't need to have these two terms. The side here is, a person should keep everything choisam b'sachoisam. Let me explain. Are there people living in a midbar? No, nobody. So, Lo yishalta be'eina. The eye of the people is not present in the midbar. So really, it wouldn't be a problem revealing stuff in the midbar, because the nations or other people under Bnei Israel are not there. So we don't have what to be worried about. Still, HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want to speak, even though there was no one, only in the Ohel Moed. A seal within a seal. That's where the bracha is. Oh, what is the bracha? B'midbar Sinai be'oihel moed. If a person keeps everything a seal within a seal, equals 536. Lechem lechol beged lilbosh. What Yaakov asked HaKadosh Baruch Hu, food and clothes, meaning panasa. From here we learn that once you keep everything sealed, but sealed into a seal, that person will never have a problem of panasa. Why? Because the Midbar Sinai, once you're already away from the eyesight of others, equal 378 chashmal, which is the light, the oir haganus, only shines where? In the Midbar Sinai. In some other place, in the city, New York, Miami, no, you cannot have it. It only has to be on things that are, the eye has no access to it. What is Be'oihel Moed then? Be'oihel Moed equals 158. Mayim Chaim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls himself in Yirmiyah, Meker Mayim Chaim. I'm the source of all living water. Every time Yirmiyah used to admonish the Bnei Israel, how did you leave the Mayim Chaim? So the Mayim Chaim can only be within a seal, between a seal. Otherwise, there's no more Mayim Chaim. So what is the problem really when I'm counting? Because the air cannot be contained. It's spiritual. As we're gonna see, you will understand everything will fall back in place. It's really a spiritual light that brings you the bracha. Now you want to create, cluster it into you want to wall it in. Nah, it's not gonna happen. This happened only in Mitzrayim when the Paro only knew how to trap the Shechina into Mitzrayim and milk it for Mitzrayim. And that's why it said in the Midrash, that's why Mitzrayim were reigning on the whole earth. Paro was the king of the whole earth. If you take the word mispar, a number is not just subjective. A number is walling things, is giving you, a dimension, is giving you a count, is giving you a weight. Mispar equals 380. 380 equals Mitzrayim. Oh, coincidence. Another one of those. Mispar, Mitzrayim. You're trying to do exactly what they tried to do in Mitzrayim. Mitzarim, they built up. There's no bracha in there. When a person says, I'm going to do this like this, and I'm going to do this, as soon as you say that, you remove the bracha from you. I wish Hashem would give me this and that. This, the bracha would come. But I will do this. Oh, you got to do? Okay, go do it with yourself, because now the Nachash is coming to be actually with you and help you doing it. You'll never get nowhere. So people, it's like a quicksand. The more you try to get out of it after that, the deeper you get in. As soon as a person takes the matters in his hands, he's lost. When a person wants, because we cannot live in this world, Olam Asiyah, we need to live with containment, things we can understand. The mind cannot say, oh, how much do we have here? I don't know. How much you can't bank? The bank says, I put the money of everybody in the same. I don't know how much it is. I don't. Everything is separated. Everything is compartmented. Everything has a number. On this, the bracha is not sure. That's what we learn. The Magen Avram here, I mentioned before what the Mechaber says, that every time before Shavuos comes the counting. So obviously the counting is related somehow to Shavuos. Mar Psachim Pevav says the Machlokes, between Rabbi Yosef and Rabbanon. If Torah Nisna, which day the Torah was given, on the Vav or on the Zayin of Sivan? Rabbanan say on the Vav, and Rabbi Yosef says on the 7th. And then Pezayin Amud Beis there's a whole even Pezayin Amud Aleph. There's a whole Shakla B'Tarya how it's impossible that the Torah was given on the 6th. Impossible. Because I'm not going to make the cheshbon here, because I'm going to lose everybody and lose myself too. Because Yetzias Mitzrayim was on the Thursday. Shabbos Mitzrayim. So they're counting that the Rosh Chodesh Iyar was on a Shabbos. Rosh Chodesh Sivan was on the 1st. The Torah was given according to everyone on Shabbos. So it could only be the 7th and not. Otherwise, according to Chachamim, it should have been given on a Friday, not on a Shabbos. And that's the question the Magen Avram asked. The Rama Mipano also asked that question. That somehow it's impossible that to to accept that the Torah was given on the 5th, on the 6th, and it was Shabbos. According to all counts, the 7th was the Shabbos, not the 6th. So if the Torah was given on the Shabbos, it was given on the 7th. In the Aruch HaShulchan, everyone's trying to answer this question. Baruch Hashem, this year I came across a Bushas Levi, and he comes with a very innovative approach. And he says as follows. HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked Moshe at the beginning, Lech elam v'kidashtam hayoim umachar. Go to the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow. How much is today and tomorrow? It's 2 days. Where did Moshe go? He went to the people and he said to them, Heyu nechonim lishloishes yamim. Be ready in 3 days. That's what the Gemara says. Moshe there added 1 day. Comes from this passage. But 1 second, says the Kedushas Levi. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so the other consequence is that the Torah was given on the 51st day after Pesach, rather than the 50th day. So say the Kedushas Levi, since Moshe Rabbeinu added 1 day, you can't tell me that the Torah was given on the 6th. It must have been given on the 7th. So then there's a big question. What do we say in the Tefillah on the first day, on the 6th, which is the first day of Shavuos? Zman Matan Torah Seinu. The time where we were given the Torah. But it's not true. It was given the next day, not today. Hashem wanted to give it today. By the end of the day, he didn't give it today. He only gave it the next day. So why do we say Zman Matan Torah Seinu on the first day of? That's what asked the Kedushas Levi. So he gives another yesod on Purim. One of the things he says on Purim is asking on the Magid. And you're going to see how beautiful he's going to tie up his whole yesod. Is really mind-boggling, and tie up with our yesod and answer everything at once, giving you a different scope that we're not looking through the right keyhole. So it says, Ilu Kirvanu, we said in the Haggadah, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu had brought us to Har Sinai, Veloi nosan lanu es haTorah dayenu, it would have been sufficient. Says, well, what's the purpose to bring us to Har Sinai? Well, is Har Sinai doing something to us? What's the purpose? The whole purpose of Har Sinai was receiving the Torah on it. No other purpose. So what is the Maggid telling us here? That had he brought us only to Har Sinai, it would have been enough. The Kedushas Levi brings the Gemara here in Yuma Chavches that Avraham Avinu was mekayem the whole Torah, even including Eruv Tavshilin. He's asking, how is it possible? If the Torah was not yet given, there was no mitzvahs. If there's no mitzvahs, what are you mekayem? And by the way, how do you know the way to be mekayem the mitzvahs? It's not possible. You have not received it. So starts the Kedushas Levi and gives us here a tremendous yesod. This whole world, how it's created is one into another, like you have cups, one into another, four. You have the guf, inside you have the nefesh, inside the nefesh you have the ruach, inside the ruach you have the neshama, and all are one. The only life the guf has is because is surrounding and covering the nefesh, which the nefesh, the same way the guf has 248 limbs and 365 sinews, so also the nefesh has 365 mitzvahs lo yisaseh to live on, and in Shari Kedusha the Marcho goes on this. That's how it begins actually. It's Shar Aleph, Perek Aleph. The beginning of Shari Kedusha. People think they get cured with doctors. When the body is sick, the nefesh is sick. When a person gets something happened to the nefesh, a mitzvah was not done properly, or for some reason the din came on one limb, and that limb also in the nefesh dies, because it's the nefesh that. So going back to Avraham Avinu, once you have, when you go and get silicium, which is glass from the sand, it's opaque. You can't see through. You have to work it, boil it. You got to work it out. In order for it to become crystal, only the best one becomes a crystal. But, at least some can see through to certain degrees according to how long you left them in the fires and how many impurities you have removed. Exactly like metal. How do we do stainless steel? How do we do the best metals? Is every level, the higher the purity of the metal, the stronger the metal is. The lousy metal that rust is because all the impurities are there. So the glass, so he said the Chiddush here, the Kedushas Levi, that when Avram was Mekayim the Torah, it's not because he had received it. It's because his guf became totally transparent. He becomes a part of his neshama, of his nefesh. Where is the Mekoyer of the nefesh of Am Yisrael? Only a small part goes down in them. Just for you to know, the Zohar says that in the morning when we wake up, the neshama goes on the nose, on top of the nose. Only when we say Baruch Hu es Hashem hamevoirach berabim, then the neshama goes in. A person who doesn't have his neshama and has no mazel, has automatically no mazel. The biggest light in the body is the neshama. But if he stays without a neshama because he doesn't say Baruch Hashem hamevoirach le'olam bo'ed, great. He has his neshama on his nose, he can look at it, but it's not inside him. That's just for side. So Avraham Avinu took his body to the point that even his body wanted to do. Do you teach, says the Kedushas Levi, do you teach the body to want to eat or to want to drink? It's natural. The nefesh to do the mitzvahs, it's natural. It goes itself and he knows where to draw them from. It's totally natural. So once you bring the body to the level of the nefesh, it becomes natural. Okay, it's great. What does it mean to bring the body to the level of the nefesh? The Noam Elimelech says, he brings it a few times actually. Just took it from Azinu. Actually, I'm going to bring it from the Avodas Yisrael, the Kuznetzer Rebbe, Kuznetzer Magid. This is a word. His Rebbe was the Noam Elimelech actually. He brings on the pasuk Ha'azinu Hashamayim Ba'adabeira. When a tzaddik want to talk to the Hamoin Am, to the people, they're not going to listen because their body is opaque. You can't see through. So it's actually drawing down the nefesh, not trying to raise the nefesh. So how are you going to talk to people like this? You cannot access the nefesh. He says, talk up there to Shamayim, the place called Shamayim, where is the Mekoyer of the Neshamis of Bnei Yisrael. The Amech Kulam Tzadikim. At that point, they're all tzaddikim. So once you talk there, what's going to happen? V'sishma ha'aretz. It's going to go from the inside and it's going to go to the person. He says there's a Mekoyer in Shamayim called Kol Yisrael, all of Israel. And this is the place where all the neshamas, and at that place, Kudsha Barichu HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Oraisa veYisrael Chadhu. This is the joining part where HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Bnei Israel, and this is the place where the neshamas of Am Yisrael are coming. Guys, remember the Bina, the Yesod of the Bina, just for you to know. This is the Mekoyer of the neshamas. It's Olam HaTorah. We've been talking about it. So this is where all the neshamas are coming. And if a person talks to another person, to the Mekoyer of his neshama, automatically it's going to go down. Now, when a person wants to know stuff, also can elevate himself there, and he will have a lot more, almost, I want to say, a nevuah. Now, if we go back to our pasuk with this yesod that we have, and with this is answered the question of the Magen Avram. What happens on the first day? On the first day of Shavuos, since HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to give the Torah, and since the Bnei Yisrael were ready to accept the Torah, as the Gemara says in Shabbos Pascha Zohar, they had corrected the sin of Adam Arishon, and they were as before the Chet. Even death, that's why even the curses of Adam Arishon stopped. So they were ready, meaning the body became as Avraham Avinu apart. So automatically, when we say, the Maggid says in the Haggadah, Ilu kervanu lifnei Sinai, if you had only let them be close to Har Sinai and arrive to that milah of before the Chet of Adam Arishon, that was enough. Because we could have known the Torah. There's no need to learn the Torah when you get to such a milah. Because you're attached to the place which is the Mekoyer of all the neshamas of Bnei Israel. Now, and I'm finishing on this. I'm just going to read one time the pasuk again with you and give you a different look on it. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe. You realize the Lemur is not here. It's at the end of the pasuk, but it's a pity. I'll answer another time. B'midbar Sinai be'oihel moed. So we talk about choisam b'sach choisam. Let's go back to the second pasuk. Here, there's a tremendous yesod. If you look, I'm going to say last 5 times. There's a Becha Lachedesh Hasheni. Seu es Rosh. When you write, and this we mentioned time and time over, the letters Rosh are the internal letters of Bnei Israel. Once you want to know and to count them and do something with the Bnei Israel, elevate them to the level, talk to this place which is called Kol Israel. Kol Adas Bnei Israel. You know what Kol Adas Bnei Israel? We said this is, you see, here's the letter Rosh. Resh Aleph Shin. Resh Aleph Shin. This is the part, the internal part that we need to elevate. And where do you elevate it? In the place where everything is one. We said, right? The proof is that as Kol Adas Bnei Yisrael equals 1,127. Exactly. V'haya Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz bayoyim hahu Yihyeh Hashem echad ushmoi echad. When we are part of the name of Hashem, when we complete, when our neshamas are completed, when the Torah is completed, then the name of Hashem is complete. And this is where exactly to that completion, this is where all. So where do you have to raise them? Now you understand why here we raise them. Here we're going to talk about a counting, a physical counting. Here we're talking about a spiritual counting. The purpose of counting is not just to know how many there are. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows every instant how many we are. Does he need to count us? No. He wants to attach all the neshamas of the Bnei Israel together up to this. This is the tzivui of Moshe Rabbeinu here. And he says the proof is bemispar shemos. Where is he here? Bemispar okay, count, I understand. Bemispar, the number of names. What the heck is the number of names? You remember here, we said ve'itechem yehiyu ish ish lamate. Okay. I have to tell you this then for you to understand. What did I do? The first letters are Hevel. The whole keys are based on the power, what comes out of the mouth. If you look at the last letters, here it's Dalet, here is Shin. Why did I do that? Shin, and this one is Yud. All right, who gives me this word? Shakai. Shin Dalet Yud. The external protection. Once you speak, bemispar shemes, why did they have
314?
Good, thank you.
So very good.
Very good. So once you have, I'll show you something mind-boggling.
Chavrusa, please quiet. Your other Chavrusa is talking right now.
Okay, so when the you say over the name, you elevate it. That's why they needed the nasi of every shevet. The nasi of every shevet was the tzino of that shevet to the place of the Knesset Israel where these neshamas belonged. And every time they were counting someone, they had to say his name, because by saying the name mispar mesaper, shemes mispar shemes, you were counting and you were attaching him. You know what Shakai is? You know that there's 5 books, right? Bereshit, Shmos, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Devarim equals, everybody knows this, 2,480, 10 times Avraham. Means Avraham incomplete. Once you mekayim the Torah, you basically can become an Avraham with the 10 meters. But if you take the Rashi Tevis, Bereshit's base, Shemos, Shin, Vayikra Vav, Bamidbar base, Devarim Dalet equals Shakai. Once you say the name, you attach them to the Torah and to the Shem Hashem. This Shakai doesn't mean only the Shem Hashem, it means the Rashi Tevis of the 5 books of the Torah. Now, how do I know it's true? I need a proof. I mean, it's a nice explanation, because bemispar shemos equals kol adas ben Israel. They go together, meaning that they serve the same purpose. How do I do kol adas ben Israel? I attach them by bemispar shemos. That's how you raise them. What do we learn from here, and what should stay with us for Shavuos is there's a tremendous he'ara, there's a tremendous light coming out already on the first day of Shavuos. Not like the second day that is taken by the Torah and everything. Here is the midbar. Nobody thinks about getting it. You have to become a kli. We have to say Leshem Yichud because now we see the way to attach ourselves to the upper levels is by saying, we say Leshem Yichud Kochabrei Choshchinte B'Tchilu Chimu Chimu Tchilo LeYachta Hashem Yud Hei Bevav Hei Beichuda Shalim B'Shem Kol Yisrael. Kol Yisrael. Kol Yisrael. This is the place where we go. If on every mitzvah we were saying this, we're attaching ourselves with another string to the mechzav of the neshamis, then mimela we understand why there's no danger from the Sitra Achra, because we are attached to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Who would dare come and attack us when the kings of the kings, creator of all creation, is here shining upon us? Great Shabbos. Good Yantev. We should be zoichet to be mekabel the Torah, besimcha, beyava, and renew our voice to the Torah, because now we can start a new life. Every Shavuos we can be a different mahus. Every Shavuos we can be Shemaim Chadashim, Be'eretz Chadasha, and everything can be started anew. Doesn't matter of the past. Everything what matters is what comes.
Amen.
Right here. I said, stop recording.
Good job.
I say, stop recording. Yes, I want to stop.